Well, thank you very much, Esther, for your presentation and also providing the policy perspective and side to it, and understanding also the challenges that that industry is facing, and what are the gaps that need to be filled. So, right now we're going to have just about half an hour of discussion. I have a couple of questions. Perhaps prepared for discussion, but I would, as mentioned earlier, would want to give ample time for you also to ask any questions to our speakers as well. So yes, I will come back to you as soon as possible. Yes, maybe just to start perhaps, and then break the ice and start with a first question, because I'll especially Jérémie's presentation focused a lot on the question of heating as well, and I mean I think it's a no-brainer that there's an urgency to decarbonize our heating systems and transition to renewable sources. Within this sphere, there's a lot of competition. So it's not only the question of sustainable biomass, but we're talking a lot about heat pumps, to some extent also about hydrogen as sources for decarbonizing heating. And we were talking about complementing and not competing, but there is a certain degree of competition there. So where do you think biomass, bioenergy, and especially the sustainable biomass appliances fit in this picture? Maybe we can have a round of reactions, starting with you, Jérémie.
I think it's working.
Okay. From here, it's a bit difficult to.
Yeah, it's okay. Okay, thank you. Well, your question is on the complementarity between electrification and biomass use in residential heating. As I think quote Martin also in his presentation. He mentioned the refurbishing of buildings, and for example, when we talk about heat pumps are clearly a viable solution, but they don't fit in everywhere. Refurbishment of building, for example, as Martin said, this is a clear enabler for the use of heat pumps. But we are clearly lagging behind in all of our renovation policies. I think most of the households, and I can speak from experience, I personally have a heat pump at home. I do also have a pellet stove, but I know I'm cold in the winter because my insulation is not good enough. And so, unfortunately, in order to, I mean, heat pumps are a good solution, but they don't work everywhere. And there are certain uses, for example, remote areas where clearly biomass is the way to go, where you have a lot of supply available and you don't necessarily have the processing capacities to make high-value product out of certain types of biomass. And so this is why, for me, these two solutions are complementary. And one last maybe point, I saw recently, I think it was an article on the internet about how using biomass for heating purposes in the residential sector in France helped relieve, I think, around the capacity of 10 nuclear power plants on the electricity grid during peak demand in the winter. So this is why biomass is an ally in the electrification of the heating system, especially for households.
I think it was really well developed, and when I mentioned the result of our models, I can add that we like the quote saying that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So it's not because our models say something that it will be the case. It's just that the optimal solution, in our case for Belgium, doesn't include biomass for residential heating. That might be wrong. Pragmatically speaking, as Jérémie mentioned, for the refurbishment, and I think that the optimal mix should be between, with the pragmatic view on the models that we have at the macro scale cannot be so specific to have all the rate and the pace of refurbishment. So always careful with the result of scientific work that we need to debate afterwards.
Working? Yeah, I don't hear anything. No?
No.
What?
Hello? Hello? Okay. Hey, yeah, works? Yeah. I'll speak louder. Maybe I'm not going to comment. I'm not a specialist of residential heating, more of an industrial heating, of course, with my background. But yeah, first of all, of course, I think your intervention, your answers were, yeah, I agree. So It's a good starting point. But for the industrial heat production, I would say that, still, like 2 years ago, for example, I worked for a company that, like, I was helping with my work at ENGIE, a company to create, to decarbonize their heat production for the industry, and actually they were still producing heat with, in Belgium, with coal. So it is, they already have an installation that is burning something to create heat. So often what they want is a quick and easy solution that will not cost too much, and that they can still continue burning something, but that is now green. So that's where biomass also enters, producing industrial heat, whether it's waste biomass or whether it's pellets. Like it can be in many forms of biomass, but producing heat for many of the industry users is actually still through just retrofitting their installation that were used to burn any type of fossil fuel, whether it's natural gas or oil sometimes even, to retrofitting to burning sustainable and renewable energy. So yeah, I think it has its place also in the industrial heat production. I think you cannot do without biomass. It's just like to produce the heat we need.
Also, we were just discussing in your presentation the policy side, and you've mentioned some of the gaps that you see in the upcoming legislation and the interactions between them. What do you think is needed then from the policymaker side to bridge those gaps, and maybe also for the other panelists? Did the challenges that Esther mentioned resonate also with your own experience, and in case of Bioenergy Europe, the experience of their members, and is there any margin of maneuver also with the policy year ahead to bridge those gaps and those challenges? Maybe we can have the opposite side.
Yeah, I think they are still. Well, of course, I talk from a very pragmatical point of view, from really trying to implement it for really the operators. But there are many additional explanations or precisions that can be brought by the Commission, for example, to just clarify, for example, some definitions or some calculation rules. Sometimes you see two definitions or two terms that looks the same, but only one term is defined. Yeah, okay, it might sound a bit like we are looking for the little problem there, but also, actually, are we sure that if we interpret it with the right definition is going to be okay? So it is some guidance sometimes, or highly appreciated for us to make sure that we interpret it correctly and that we are not doing something that's not expected from us. So yeah, I would say that is quite. Or communications or something official that can sometimes help. Or if not, the problem is actually it's the how do you say, the burden of precision falls into either the certification schemes or the auditors. Sometimes the certification schemes, they bridge some gaps that were not very precise in the legislation, but sometimes they also missed some points or haven't already foreseen everything. And so the auditors actually on the field, during an audit, sometimes they have to bridge the very last gaps, the technical gaps that neither the policy, neither the certification scheme, neither us, we actually bridged. So we just like sometimes, and we should leave the least margin possible, the smaller margin possible to interpretation actually. If we really want a system that's useful and that's really reliable, it should be the minimum possible interpretation there. That's left. Voilà. That's for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have less to say on this. I'm more here to learn about policies, but yeah, again, I can just mention that I can guess the challenge to certify some biomass sustainable, like certify sustainability with a systemic approach. I guess it's a challenge. So that's just my only comment.
On my side, I'm not from a policy background as well. I'm still struggling a bit, I think, to really understand all the details and the interaction between all of those policies. And I'm working in Brussels, so I cannot imagine how it has to be for certain other users. Mm-hmm. And I think for that, my suggestion, and I take this from a decarbonization project that we were part of, I like to ask that question to all of the people I met with was, do you think that the link between you and the policymakers is good enough in order to go forward? And most of them also were a bit lost, and they thought that the link was not the bridge between policy and industry, or even any user that needs to decarbonize is not good enough, or is missing. And for that, I think also as associations in Brussels, this is also the role that we have to play. Especially, I mean, we are an energy association, but there are a lot of industrial representatives in Brussels, and I think it's also their role to pass on the message and to really assist their own sector, and to transpose those policies coming from above to reality.
Thanks, Jérémie. I would like to maybe already start getting a few questions from the audience. Then I noted one in the back, and then here in the front. Okay, so we have. Okay, we can get these 3 questions for now. Here in the back, yeah.
Hi, David Abiyago from Argus Media. I think the elephant in the room is perhaps, or probably, is the 0 rating for biomass in the ETS. So we've got the communication and all the efforts next month, on the 2040 target. I was wondering what you could say about that. Do you think that is something that, may fall? Obviously, it's extremely vital for you as an industry, but what are your thoughts on that? Thanks.
I was about to take it, but
you
first
can take it.
Well, for me, the 0 rating of biomass is connected to its renewable nature, and that is something that has been acknowledged for years. It's been biomass is qualified as renewable not by Bioenergy Europe, but by the scientific community, by the IPCC, by the IEA, and keeping the 0 rating of biomass. I mean, we all know how big of a driver CO2 prices are in industrial decarbonization, and I think that this is definitely an ally for industrial decarbonization, because at the end of the day, we all have the same constraint, which is finance. I think when it comes to decarbonization, and so I think this is why for me the 0 rating should remain as such and should never be, let's say, discussed.
I'm going to also maybe react. So first of all, the fact that it's 0 rated in the ETS, as you mentioned, Jérémie, it's really connected to the sustainability of biomass. Of course, an unsustainable biomass is a biomass that would have been produced not according to sustainability standards, not appropriate harvesting, or illegal biomass, or biomass that would have done 3 times the planet. Of course, then you have not low carbon emission biomass, then it's complicated. Then it's not compliant with RED 2. Then RED 2 translates that, like, if you are compliant with the sustainability criteria, then they consider it as sustainable biomass and renewable biomass if you are meeting the criteria. So of course it comes with the consequences that it is 0 rated, because you have verified that you have a sustainable production that maintains the carbon level, that maintains the same rate of carbon sequestration. So it is verified through the standard. Initially it was not the case. Now ETS has recently added, like I think last year or like the previous revision, it has added that you need to be RED 2 compliant to be able to maintain the 0 rated. So it is all coherent, and I really, really hope for the industry that it's not going to change, because if that changes, you have the RED 3 criteria that are strengthening, and I think it makes sense that we keep on improving the sustainability. And as you said, Martin, the fact that we are that bioenergy is kind of is still very personal and emotional for lots of people. It makes it a pioneer in the sustainability criteria. So it's good also that we keep on improving the criteria, but then it has to come with the same consequences as 0 rated. It is the question of like carrot or stick. And it is, if you don't have the carrot if you decarbonize, then you have less ETS allowances to pay. If you remove this carrot, frankly, I think lots of efforts that have been done in the past will be will probably be cancelled. People will still go back to fossil fuel if they have to pay anyway the ETS. Then why make all the effort in verifying and certifying and verifying sustainability criteria if they anyway have to pay the same price? So I really hope for the decarbonization we should all, yeah.
So it's once again
think
we're
it's
getting
very
back to the question of coherence.
Yeah, and if we want to have a decarbonized energy sector, and if we want to keep, like it has been proven by lots of scientists, also the IPCC is saying that biomass will be a part of the future of the energy mix. So yeah, we should give the appropriate tools to incentivize properly biomass and force the biomass sector also to make efforts by verifying the sustainability criteria, but still incentivize correctly. Well, that's
Great, thanks, Esther. Then we had another question over here. From the man, gentleman here in front. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Thierry Rommel, and I belong rather to the supply side of biomass. My question would be, because the word has not even been mentioned, but what would be your concern that at the European level, domestic supply of biomass will be there to, let's say, allow for the pursuit of your strategy?
Mm-hmm. So concerns in terms of supply, you mean, and potential supply reduction?
Especially at the European level, within Europe.
Like the resource and the feedstock potential that we have in Europe, you mean?
Yeah.
What potential? So as the studies shows, and when we check the resource, there is space for increasing the biomass contribution there. Will it be economically feasible? That's another question, and maybe we need to also think about how economic and finance drive the change. But in terms of resource, there is the potential to increase. We just have to think on which system does it imply in terms of, as I mentioned, for the agricultural and the harvesting of the manure and the agricultural residues. But for forestry, there is also space to increase, depending on the countries. In Belgium, for example, not much space to increase because we already use a lot, rightfully, what we can about forest. But we can increase the contribution of biomass in Europe. Will it be enough to have a low carbon energy system in 2050 with the current energy demand? I don't think so. We need to decrease the demand if we want to achieve a really sustainable energy transition. That's for sure. But that doesn't mean that bioenergy need to decrease. It should increase, and do it carefully with the incentive and sustainability criteria.
And if I can add, I mean, when we talk about biomass use in energy, we rely on, let's say, processing residues, for example, for the forest industry. And I think a key tool here is to make sure that we keep our forest industry alive, and to make sure that we do keep on producing those much needed residues. And this is a concern that I have because I studied forestry. I know, for example, in Belgium is a very large exporter of wood to China, for example, and this wood is not being processed here, and we don't benefit from the residues. So if we also become a bit, let's say, more EU focused on our industry sector, on our forestry sector, I think we will have more residue available, and it all depends also on what type of, because as Martin said, we have to think also on how we manage the forest. And I think this is also a key tool, and I think it's a transition of an entire system, but we do have this value chain in Europe. It's one of our, I think, our main strength also is like forestry competences across Europe. And so I think that supply can be guaranteed that way, but as Martin said, we will need anyway a reduction of the demand globally. This is, of course, this is going to happen, but the contribution of biomass, I think, will be larger in the future because the overall amount of demand will be reduced. But yeah, for me, this is one way on which we could improve the supply. And on the other hand, also with the improvement in technologies, we have more efficient technologies, meaning less biomass for the same output. And this is why, for me, it's also a good possibility that we will have more biomass because the installations will require less for the same amount of heat or electricity or anything.
think so. Is there anything you want to add? Right. Brilliant, thanks. And next question over here.
Manuel Scarabinis from Bioenergy Europe. I have a question for Martin and a question for Esther. For Martin, the question would be, to what extent do you think that the public discourse on bioenergy is influenced by the urban versus rural divide? Because the urban communities see the forest, for example, as a landscape they visit periodically for recreation, while the rural communities are more intertwined. And for Esther, the question would be, you focus mostly on the, let's say, day-to-day regulatory challenges. But I was wondering whether it's the big picture that influences decisions. Meaning that if you look, for example, at the biogas sector, which also has to comply with sustainability requirements, there is a clear support from the political side, and there we see developments. While I think if you look at the solid biomass sector, it's mostly, you know, the big picture and the poison debate that affects project development. And a sub-question to that is, do you have real examples of projects that are not proceeding and are going into fossil energy, for example, because the stakeholders behind are afraid of bioenergy, for example? Thank you.
So for the question about the nature perception, urban versus rural, it's clear. To me, it's clear that the nature perception is even worse in big cities than in countrysides, and that doesn't help. We are completely disconnected to the materiality of our needs. Some people goes to the supermarket and doesn't know where it comes from. Does it come from a tree or does it come from the ground? So I think that there is a real work to reconnect to the ecosystems on which we rely, and that's mostly the case. That's really true for cities, but today it's also true for countrysides, but maybe less there.
Okay, and for my question then, not exactly sure how to answer, but yeah, of course, the bigger picture. It's I think that's a crucial part. Being constantly like diving into the details. It's true that sometimes I also tend to forget a bit about what actually are the bigger goals. But yeah, I think that's always crucial to remind that. And I think actually ETS it's an amazing tool to really drive properly and give actually the kind of bigger picture also to the industry. In terms of project that would have not proceeded, I'm thinking loud here. I know that maybe, okay, I don't maybe not have an example in bioenergy, but I also work in other types of green fuel. I know that typically, well, lots of new rules on green hydrogen have been published by the EU. It is still frightening for the industry to try and go forward in that direction, because it's not clear yet what's expected. So I know that some projects are maybe not cancelled because of that, but sometimes they are really, really slowed down because of that, because of the being scared. I'm thinking for bioenergy, if I can find any examples lately. I know that some the question actually from a colleague from Argos Media about the ETS has really scared a lot of people, and the fact that will it remain the same? Will biomass remain zero rated in the ETS system has been raised many times by the project, and sometimes they want insurances from our side. From colleagues, I mean, I'm a project engineer. I have a background in engineering. I am not a background in policy. I'm trying to understand them in the daily job, but yeah, they want insurances from our side that actually we can guarantee that ETS will remain as it is. I have no guarantee. I really hope so. I really, like touching wood here, I really hope that it will remain the same, because some projects are not daring really, because there are many stakeholders in the project. They just don't dare to put the money on the table to make the project if in the end, in 5 years, it changes. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Do we have any final questions? I could maybe take one or two more. Otherwise, I'll fire myself. Okay, there's another one over here.
Thank you. Regarding related to your question on the change of mentality. It's really interesting to think about that. While in the Brussels bubble, we might often be a bit technocrat and thinking, how could we find the right arrangement? While maybe there is also a need for a global change of how do we consider ourselves in the world. But this is something where my question is basically, have you also think or researched on how to do that? And that's a thousand, right? So that's a big question, but yeah, I would be interested to hear if you looked at how can we change this mentality and how can we work on that.
Yeah, it makes me think about an important thing. It's interdisciplinary work, so I'm not myself a philosopher, or I have a background in bioengineering, so it's not my disciplines. But I think that we need more this kind of interdisciplinary work, and dare to go where you are not comfortable. So I'm not comfortable answering this question, but firstly, I wanted to mention the problem and how is it related to ecological crisis. And actually, when you look in the literature of those disciplines, it's clear that it's related to how we interact with the environment and how we use it and destroy it afterwards for economical and for the profit. So that's clear in this sense. How can we change? I think it's. The easy answer will be to make it to the debate, to make collective discussion, to raise awareness on that, and to reconnect to the needs and to something that really actually count, and what do we care, what's a good life. So it goes even deeper in those philosophical interrogation, but I think that it can be frustrating. There is no clear answer of what we should do, even for the policies, but we should talk about it, discuss, mention that profits make no sense. Sometimes digging a hole, make profit, and then putting ground afterwards, make profits. I mean, we should not be only looking at profit, and that's where we destroy nature and what we call nature and human. So I think that we should just change a bit the narrative there. And narratives can come from many different sides. So it can come from art, stories, theater, songs, but also from debate, collective debates, political decisions. It can come from everywhere. We need to.
Yes, for me, I was about to say, I mean, for me, one key point will definitely be education and dialogue, as Martin said. I mean, I'm also a bioengineering by training, and I benefit from this a lot on my day-to-day work. That's helping me understanding how ecosystem work. And unfortunately, when I read online about criticism on bioenergy, I think most of the statements are also sometimes a misunderstanding of how an ecosystem works. And how, I mean, it's often black or white. You can do one thing or another, but actually we have to change our perception of the ecosystems, I think, and think of it as some kind of mosaic where you have to combine all different types of uses. And I think for that, yeah, education is really a key ally, and I think we do see improvements there, I think. I cannot see in the future, unfortunately, but I hope that, yeah, next generation will have more concerns also on those questions, and I think for me it will go through education and dialogue, definitely changing people's perceptions.
Thank you. Then, since we only have a couple of minutes to go, I would like to take advantage to, since this is the first event of the year for Bioenergy Europe, and probably some of the first times this year that we all gathered together here to maybe reflect on what do you think we're going to be talking about in the year ahead? Like, what are going to be the things that will keep you and keep the sector busy, and what do we need to watch out for in the year or two ahead? So maybe we can have a final round of intervention. So maybe Esther, you want to start?
Well, unsurprisingly, I'm going to talk about policies. So I think UDR and Red 3 on my side, it will be very clear that we are going to talk a lot about that and how to make that work. I think we will see the improvement also of certification scheme. They will get there will be lots of work also on their side to just be able to collaborate better to improve their system. I know, for example, that SBP has published their version 2, so it has a lot of new upcoming changes also on that side of the certification scheme, also trying to continuously improve what they do. Yeah, so on my side, that's very clear. I'm gonna be busy with the new regulation to come and trying to make more projects involving biomass, involving use of waste also, not only like primary biomass or secondary biomass, but also sometimes industrial waste that we just don't valorize yet. I think there is many improvement in technology and just pre-treatment, for example, of biomass to make it optimal or more appropriate for certain industry uses. So I think that will be also a lot on the picture.
For me, it will be the end of my thesis, I think, this year. I hope to see also more in the debates, as Jérémie mentioned, new forestry practice. The sustainability debate that I found very interesting, because the sustainability debate brings interdisciplinary debate, and so we need to discuss with bioengineers, but with social workers, with foresters. I hope we will see that more and more, to have interdisciplinary discussion on those very important topics, and the energy, and how does it integrate into energy in our energy mix?
Thank you.
And for me, the answer is going to be also similar to what Esther said, because at the end of the day, I'm still working also in Bioenergy Europe. We are working as a Brussels association, so this is also the core of what we do. What I expect to see is also, I mean, kind of a combination of both, because especially on the supply side, I also wish that we have a better, let's say, we rethink our forestry systems. We adopt different practices as well, and we also, in the face of all the, I mean, I didn't go over this topic at all during any of the presentation, but we need, for example, when it comes to forestry, we need to help forests, because unfortunately with climate change, with changing condition, with all of those disturbances, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the past 4 years have all been record years in terms of catastrophes, and I wish that we would start listening to the right people as well, because I think sometimes we miss some of the foresters' intervention in those political debates, and I think they have a very important and very wise counsel to provide there, and I wish to see this in the near future.
It's interesting because we were before the event talking with a couple of colleagues about what to expect for the year ahead, and generally I think the sense was that it would be somewhat of a calmer year than 2023 was, but I get the feeling that there's going to be a lot going on this year as well. So a very exciting year ahead for the sector and for all of us here in Brussels. So I think, that puts an end to our discussion today. And I mean, I think we come with some important messages here. We've discussed the policies and the importance of coherence and reliability and predictability of the policies, the role that bioenergy is set to have, and the complementarity across different sectors and end users, and then the question indeed of our relationship with nature and the public perception of the sector, and how to tackle it from an interdisciplinary approach. And I think what has made this event so interesting is to indeed have this interdisciplinarity and this plurality of views within the sector and different perspectives. So thank you very much to our speakers, to Jérémie, to Martin, and to Esther for being with us. If I can ask for a big round of applause for them. Thanks a lot to all of you also for once again having joined us in this snowy day, and for your active participation and in great questions. And hope to see you soon in next events. Thanks also to Bioenergy Europe for putting this event together, and also for having me here. It's been a very good discussion. I learned a lot, so thanks. Have a great day.